What's up, everybody? It's Pikel with the Infinity Edge podcast. We are back for the free viewing public. Hello. If you're new here and would like to see the rest of the videos this weekend, you should join the esportsdepartment.com and use the code IEDGE. Can anyone spell that for me, please?
IEDGE.
Wrong. Ghost, you try.
IEDGE.
Correct. Thank you. Now that we got that out of the way, I am joined by more than one Alan. I'm joined by Alan 1 and then also the second one, who is Alan 2, the Ghost and the Hef. And we're going to try to be faster. We are long-winded fellows. And today we're going to try to be a little more to the point, and it will undoubtedly fail, but we're going to try. So that's all I got for the opener right there. I know it was pretty amazing. But Ghost, what do you think? Where are we taking this show?
You know, the LEC is back. We finished our first round robin. It's time for round 2. And yeah, pretty excited to get into it.
Agreed. I'm keeping us on time, on short. Michael said we are long-winded fellows. I don't know
Correct.
that I agree with
Move
that
on.
assessment there.
Continue.
There's one of us who may be
Proceed.
longer-winded than the others.
Well, I'm not the one who just added a minute to the opening, so check the watch. Somebody timed that guy. Put him on a leash.
So with that note, we'll just hop right into the general discussion here. I wanted to bring up, like I said at the top of the show, we're in the second round robin. I want to get your guys' thoughts going into this one. Any teams you're high on versus teams you don't want any of. I'm assuming no one wants anything of Astralis and stuff like that, but maybe your guys' perceptions have changed between your rankings at the beginning of the split.
Alan, I'll let you take this one first.
All right. I am going to say something I think that is probably unpopular in the esports department streets. I think that Excel sucks. I really think that they have massively overperformed their gold numbers so far, and they have no idea what they're doing in any early game. They just wait till the end of every single game for Patrick to carry them in one or two team fights, and so far that strategy has gone on the good side of how that strategy can go, and I expect in the later half of the season it will be the bad side of how that strategy can go, because I don't think that the rest of their map is LEC elite. I'm sure that they'll end up 6th, 7th, somewhere in there, but I don't think that they're a serious team in that LEC. So I think that's my lone hot take.
All right, Michael, your thoughts going into the second round robin?
Yeah, so I don't have hot takes. I have accurate temperature takes. So I think that G2 is probably the best team in the LEC.
God.
What do you guys think about that one?
Way to go. Well done.
Thank you.
Agreed.
So in our last video, we discussed the different types of teams that we have, and I think that what Alan's kind of getting at is, since we don't think that they are great talent-wise, and we don't think that they are great in-game, performance-wise, it's a good thing to be skeptical about them. I think that the league really is the haves and the have-nots. I think G2, Rogue, Fnatic, Mad Lions, and Misfits are the 5 teams that I like talent-wise, and that's really where that's what it comes down to for me, just in general. Then for the rest of the teams that I think I would want more of than the public would be Astralis. I think Astralis is going to be pretty good in the next couple of weeks relative to what we expect from them, or from what everyone else expects from them. And a lot of that comes down to their play style and their willingness to play the game in a more aggressive way. So when we get these teams stressing out about playing these intelligent macro type of games, Astralis can come in and punch them in the mouth. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if a team like Astralis picked up wins over XL, Schalke, SK. I could see that happening. So I think it's probably them. It's probably Astralis would be the one sleeper I'm pretty high on. And everyone knows I'm a Misfits junkie, so that's fine too.
Yeah, I would just add that I am also on the Misfits are going to be better in the second half than they were in the first half. Teams like that who are getting huge early game leads and not closing them out, I feel like those teams generally in the history of League of Legends get better over the course of a split than teams who never get leads and somehow have gotten wins, like the Dignitas Excels of the world.
Okay. Well, we'll move right into the slate. We have a hot one coming up right here on Friday that everyone's excited for. We'll start off with the first match. SK Gaming, who comes into this 4-5, versus Schalke 04, 5-4. Schalke kind of dipped there a little bit, but is this going to stop them enough to lose to SK Gaming? We'll start with you, Alan, on this one. Your thoughts on SK versus Schalke 04?
I think that I am not as high on Schalke long term as a lot of people, so I would want to be on the SK side of this game from a DraftKings standpoint. I don't think that, like I'm saying, I think that SK should be favorites in this game or anything like that, but I don't think that like the talent gap between these two teams is nearly as big as a lot of people seem to think it is. Like I guess Abadage versus Blue kind of stands out as like a place that I would say Schalke has a pretty big advantage, but I don't think that anywhere else is like it's like a horrible standout kind of matchup. And so I think because this slate is so favorite heavy, and if you want to be able to play like a 4-stack of G2, or if you want to be able to play a 4-stack of Fnatic this week, you're going to have to mix them with an underdog. I do think that for me, SK is that underdog this week. These teams are pretty close in the gold stats, the GSPD, gold per minute kind of stuff. And I think that like long term, Schalke is probably the slightly better team and probably like a 55-45 kind of favorite in this game. But that is closer than the odds have it, and therefore closer than I expect the field to have it. So personally, I would want more of the SK side of this game. Also, Schalke has just scored horribly in their wins and have not won anyone any slates, and they're like, you know, the 4th most expensive team here again. Or actually, I think they might be the 3rd most expensive team in certain spots. So Schalke is a no for me on DraftKings. SK with some of the, you know, big favorites, but I want to get the favorites in the 4-stack position.
All right, we'll move on to you, Michael. Schalke 04 versus SK Gaming.
Yeah, so I've been kind of anti-Schalke for the past couple of like slates, because kind of what Alan was talking about, they had a good record, but they really weren't scoring well for DraftKings, and I didn't see anything special about their gameplay. So lane by lane, I think that Broken Blade is better than Genax, but I do think that Genax is a serviceable player, so I don't think there's a huge gap there. I think that Tinks is better than Gilius, and I think that right now Tinks is being held back by the rest of the team. Not meaning that like Tinks would be popping off for like 10 kill games, 20 kill, like 10 kill games. But I think Tinks could long term be somebody like Yonkos, where they're like a super good jungler, very good at helping control the game, very good on a very good team. So I that's going to be a thing that I'm going to have to fight myself against, because that's just like the way I feel right now. So maybe that'll become a bias at some point. Abadage is better than Blue. This is probably the first or second biggest mismatch, I think. Because even though I don't think Abadage is like faker Dage, like what people want to talk about, I do think that it's a pretty good meta for them right now. Specifically, last year at the end of the year when Abadage started getting a lot of praise from people, it was in a similar meta. Like I think we did see Abadage play things like Azir and Corki a decent amount and make some highlight plays. At least that's what I think I remember. And against Blue, we haven't really seen much from Blue in that respect yet. So we'll have to wait and see for that. But in the bot lane, I don't think there's a gigantic difference. I think we've seen a little bit better play from Schalke, but I think it's mostly because they've been winning more games. So I don't think I'll play any Schalke tomorrow. if I was running, like, there's a 58 lineup limit, right? If I was playing 58 lineups, I would have exposure to Schalke in some like very basic stacks with low owned team compositions, but I just don't think I'll be able to get there. So I do prefer the SK side. For an outright bet, I prefer Schalke, or I prefer SK for an outright bet. I prefer SK for DraftKings lineups, but I would probably try to get exposure to them as secondary stacks, not primary stacks.
Okay, good thoughts. We'll move on to our second game of the slate. We have the Mad Lions sitting at 5-4 versus XL, who Alan mentioned that he says sucks, at also 5-4. Mad Lions seems to still be true to their name, mad in the bot lane, with Carzy jumping in whenever he feels like it. Do you guys think after this week they kind of get reserve and start pulling back a little bit, or will we see the same crazy Mad Lions we've seen through the first half of the split? Michael, we'll start with you.
I think that Mad Lions will just continue to get better, and I think that they will get even more mad. I think that it's just their better way to play the game. So I hope that's how they continue to approach the game. I think this matchup specifically, the fact that the real powerhouse of Mad Lions is in the bot lane, like Carzy and Kaiser can put together gigantic advantages through the laning phase. So with a little bit of additional pressure from Elyoya and Armut, I could see this game getting kind of out of control. And I mean that in a gold perspective, not necessarily a kills perspective, because XL, in my opinion, is one of those teams that will just lay over and die. If XL does truly think that they can compete with these better teams, then you're going to see them fight more often than they have in the past. So my hope is that we have a high kill score game. And for that reason, I would want to get more exposure than normally to both of these teams, because this is a spot where I would want to kind of say, like, they're both going to buck their trends, where, well, not both, but XL is going to buck their trend. So Mad Lions going up against a losing XL shouldn't expect to have a larger number of kills than normal. But if XL is actually going to compete against these better teams, they need to be more aggressive. And if they're going to be more aggressive, it's going to be better for DraftKings. So I could see Mad Lions doing better in wins, and I could also see XL doing well in a potential win. The only thing you need to convince yourself of is, like, do they fit well into lineups with G2 or Fnatic? And if the answer is yes, then that's all the justification you need to play XL. And this is actually a spot where I would consider using them. So I would want exposure to both. I'll go lane by lane real quick, but I think it's pretty obvious. So Armut against Kryze. Obviously, I think Armut's the better player, but stylistically, Kryze, I think, could theoretically scale pretty far into the late game and have an okay spot. And they've seemed to really embrace that identity this split. Elyoya against Dan. I think that Elyoya is a better player. Humanoid against Chekolad. Humanoid hasn't had a good split, but he's still a better player, I think, than Chekolad. And then Carzy and Kaiser are better than Patrick and Torre. So if we're correct and Patrick and Torre are the only win condition for XL typically, then I could see gigantic issues for XL winning the match. But in the low range of outcomes where they do actually manage to win, I think they would have very high upside. So I would definitely want exposure to them as primary and secondary stacks.
Okay. Alan, we'll move on to you. Mad Lions versus XL, your thoughts?
So I think that Michael covered the matchup pretty much the way that I would discuss it as well. I think that Mad Lions is just underrated at this point by their results, even though I don't think that they've played very well this split. I think that talent-wise, they long-term are just going to be a better team than XL. And so I feel similarly that Mad Lions should be a bigger favorite in this game than they are, and I have a real-life bet on this one and wrote it up for my weekly article. So I would want to play a lot more Mad Lions here. I did just want to bring up the bloodiness ratings here to talk about what Michael was talking about a little bit there, where, like, XL is a pretty bad kills per win team, obviously, but their deaths per loss is right around league average in LEC, and then their combined kills per minute is also pretty bad. But it still makes them near average on this slate and this game from a bloodiness standpoint. I forgot to transition to showing the screen on screen, but there it is. it makes this game near average from a bloodiness standpoint, and that is something that has not happened with Excel in the game for me yet, because Mad Lions is such a high kill score sort of team. So I will be playing a lot of Mad Lions tomorrow. I would be trying to double the field on Mad Lions, play them as primary and secondary stacks. They don't fit super great with G2 and Fnatic, but that means that people are going to want to play them less, and they don't like playing those like top captain, support captain type of lineups, and that makes me want to play those lineups even more. So I will be playing lots and lots of Mad Lions, and then I don't think I'll play much of Excel at all. I think that what Michael is saying makes sense if you are playing a lot of lineups tomorrow. I think I'm going to scale back my lineups quite a bit tomorrow. Like I'll probably only play around 10. And so in that scenario, I'll probably just pick a side here. And for me, that side's Mad Lions.
All right, we'll move on to our third game of the slate. We have Astralis sitting at 2-7 versus G2, 7-2, coming into the second half of the round robin. G2 are good. Load up on G2. Is that the strategy we're going to be taking here? We'll start with you, Alan.
Yes, yeah, I think that's pretty smart. I think that anyone who watches the LEC like maybe once a year could probably come up with that strategy, but I don't think it's a bad thing and a bad place to start tomorrow. G2 is my highest bloodiness rated team tomorrow. Astralis has been has died a lot in losses for a team that loses a lot. A lot of teams that lose a lot like don't die very much in their losses because they're just trying to minimize mistakes at some point in the season, but Astralis hasn't been that way so far, and I think a lot of that comes down to like Zanzara. I think that Zanzara has at least like had them try stuff in game, and especially when it gets on pocket picks, they perform better. So I could see it even that like Astralis gets out to a little early lead in this game. Like G2 is like, whatever, we'll let Zanzara play as Skarner, and then they fall behind a little bit to Astralis. I can't get it to the point where I'm like, Astralis wins this game, even like 10% of the time, because I think even in the scenarios where Astralis gets big leads, G2 just kind of fights and scraps its way back like they did against Misfits when I was a little bit on Misfits. So once again, because I'm playing a smaller number of lineups, I will just be playing the G2 side here. If you're playing a huge range of lineups, I think always playing some of G2's opponent is a good strategy, but if you're playing like a small amount of lineups like me, I don't think that this is the spot that you want to go with the opponent personally.
All right, Michael, we'll get your thoughts on G2 versus Astralis.
All right, so before I get into it, do you both think that they will have a better or worse record than 7-2 for the second half of the split? They went 7-2 in the first half of the split.
G2, you mean?
What?
G2, you mean? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, what I said. Yeah.
That seems about right. Like, I think 7-2 is the number that I would expect for them. They'll get upset twice.
Yeah. Either they go 7-2 or 8-1 here.
Yeah, I think I'd want to go 8-1. So just for people who are trying to think of like a more long-term approach to playing DraftKings, what you need to ask yourself is what percentage of the slates do I think G2 is actually going to lose on, right? Because if you think that G2 is going to win 7 or 8 of their next 9 games, then you will want exposure to them unless you want to consistently fade them. So like if you're playing 1 or 2 lineups and you just want to give yourself a chance to win solo first every night, maybe you can justify fading G2 every time because it's going to be tough to find a unique combination with them. But if you are playing more than one lineup, like let's say you are playing 10 lineups, 20 lineups, 58 lineups, then taking that long-term approach of like matching the field and then trying to be unique in that exposure, if you go over a set number. So like, let's say, what do you guys think would be a reasonable number to have G2 owned every single slate moving forward for the rest of the season, assuming you did want to play them as a part of your core exposures every slate?
So you're saying how much do I think the field, like on average, holds G2? Is that what you're saying?
If you were going to play 58 lineups every slate for the rest of the season, well, 50-ish. Like I don't, the number changes as the season goes on.
Yeah.
But if you were going to play 50 lineups every single time, what kind of exposure would you want to G2?
Somewhere between 30 and 35 would be my initial instincts on that.
I guess I would say 40 because that's where they usually come in on the field, right?
I think so.
Around that 40% mark. Yeah, I'd probably just match the field on that one.
Yeah, I think that's probably the right thing to do is like get roughly 40% of G2. I have never tried doing it that way, just because back in the day when there were a lot less people, like the max was like 17. So you just create like 17 combinations, treat them as parlays, and you'd like get solo first once or twice a week, or not once or twice a week, but I got a lot of solo first just doing it that way. But now with a lot of people playing a lot more lineups than I do, it's just like a different game. And it's an exciting thing to think about, and like it's fun to think about. So I just figured I'd get that in there. Obviously, I think G2 is going to win. I don't really think there's much value in playing Astralis. If you were going to play 10 or 20 lineups and one to play one, go ahead. Throw an Astralis lineup in there. Maybe even in a loss, they could get a ton of kills, but it's not going to feel good. You're not going to want to do that.
All right. We'll move on to our fourth game of the slate. We have the legendary Misfits on this show going up against Rogue, who are 7-2. Misfits coming into this 3-6. Yikes. I think this is a game I might fade the Misfits on. I don't think Rogue will give up enough kills in this spot, and Rogue just seems like they're going to roll over Misfits. But we'll go to Michael on this one for his thoughts. Misfits versus Rogue. Who do you like? What's going on in this matchup?
I actually still do like Misfits here. I think that the same logic applies. If I'm playing every single slate the rest of the season, am I doing like a 3-6 record or better? I think that Misfits will be better than 3-6. Do I think that Rogue is going to be better or worse than 7-2? I think they'll be worse than 7-2. So I just have to play it that way. I think that with Misfits, it's the same logic from the XL game, right? If Misfits is convinced that they are a solid team and can fight for like a high playoff spot or actually be competitive in the playoffs, they will need to play more aggressive when they're playing the best teams, because those are the wins that will fundamentally change your outlook on the season. Like, I know you guys are probably familiar with like the win total stuff from the NFL. Going into every single game, the money line is set off of what that projected win total was from before the season. So let's say the Titans were playing against the Jets, and before the season started, the Titans were projected to win 60% of the time. But as the season goes on, the money line moves off of that pretty far because of public perception. Oh my God, the Jets are horrible. And then you get a money line where it's like Titans minus 250 or something like that, right? So this is a spot where I think Misfits before the season, their win rate would actually be higher than what it is right now. So in what I think is probably like a 40-60 matchup, it's probably being listed at something that's closer to like a 70-30. So I do think that I want exposure to that 10% of leverage. Do I think that Misfits can win a bloody game against Rogue? I think the answer is yes, because in order for Misfits to be able to compete with Rogue, it's going to require them to be more aggressive in the early game. If they let Rogue dictate the pace of this match, then they are going to probably get blown out of the water, because it would depend on like one team fight going their way at the 20-minute mark, something like that. I think that's a really bad way for Misfits to play. I hope they don't go that route. With that being said, it does make me a little bit less interested in Rogue. But since this matchup is potentially a spot where two good teams are playing one another, I will get exposure to both teams. So I'm done. Let me go lane by lane, and then I'll pass it off, and I'll leave you guys with one question. So Auto Omne against Hyrit. I think they're actually pretty close. Hyrit's been pretty surprising, I think, this split so far, even with their bad record. Inspired against Razork. Inspired's a better player. Razork has an insane name. if Medic is doing the cast, I will be making fun of his voice throughout the cast. Larson against Vetio. Larson's better. Hansama and Trimby against Kabe and Vander. I think it's even because like the combination of Kabe and Vander is better than combination. No, I think Hansama is better than Kabe.
Yeah.
I think Vander is better than Trimby. I think Trimby's talked up too much at this point. Those are my thoughts. The question I have for both of you is, what do you think the ownership will be, the average ownership for both teams tomorrow?
I think it's like this one is really hard for me to project. I think the Misfits will be 5% or less would be my guess. And then Rogue, I have no idea ever.
Oh my god, please be true. Please.
Misfits under 10, Rogue about 20%.
Yeah. Because Rogue is such a strange team for DraftKings purposes that like I think that they just end up lower owned than I ever expect every slate, essentially.
If I had to guess over under 15%, I'd say under 15%. But maybe that's just because I'm like too much of a Misfits fan. But that's all I had for this one. So
interesting.
All right. Well, we'll get your thoughts on this one, Alan. What do you got? Misfits versus Rogue.
So I think that if I were going to play it, I would also want to play the Misfits side, but I think I'm going to stay away from this game entirely with the small amount of lineups I'm playing tomorrow, just because there is something to good teams coming off of a loss, like in every sport ever. I don't know that people have studied it in League of Legends, but in almost every sport, like good teams coming off a loss just get a bump against the spread, get a bump against the money line, everything. So because Rogue just lost in a close one to G2, I find it hard to see them losing 2 games in a row, even against a good team like Misfits, who I believe are a good team long term. I don't know if they are good enough to beat Rogue. Like I think that when we really go down that talent matchup, it's pretty hard to be like, this is the spot where Misfits definitely gets ahead in this game, and that always worries me from betting on an underdog standpoint. Then on the Rogue side of things, I think that Rogue games where they win, they often dictate the kill tempo of the game, and my bloodiness ranking has this one pretty bad from a bloodiness standpoint in a Rogue win. So I wouldn't want to really mess with Rogue because of my small lineup exposure tomorrow. So I think that this game is just is a no-go for me.
Okay. We'll move on to our 5th and final game of the slate. We have Vitality coming up 1-8. After an 0-2 week last week with Crown Shot at the helm, versus Fnatic, who are 6-3. Vitality's schedule is pretty awful this week. They have Fnatic tomorrow, and then they have Rogue on Saturday. So I guess we'll start with you, Alan, on this one. Vitality versus Fnatic. Is there hope for Vitality to take this game?
I want to go to Michael's exercise. I think it's really good. If Fnatic is 6-3 in the first half of the season, do we expect them to be better or worse than that in the second half of the season? And I think I probably already know your guys' answer. They're going to be better than 6-3, right?
No, they're going to be worse. Yamato Cannon, the Yamato Cannon influence. He's going to drag them down from the inside, actually. Tomorrow is the beginning of the end. Crown Shot's going to get his first did he win yet?
No.
Right?
No, he has not.
All right, so he's going to get his first victory, specifically because of Yamato Cannon. It's an inside fix. So when Yamato Cannon went to Korea, he met with LS. LS said, hey, when you play against Crown Shot, you can give him a free win. So you just got to do it. Give it up in the draft, basically one of those situations.
All right, that aside, I think that that is one angle you could certainly approach this game with. I will be approaching it with the Fnatic is significantly better than Vitality and are the bloodiest team in the LEC, and therefore I think that The reason that I said G2 like 30 to 35 for me personally is because I also would want 30 to 35 of Fnatic for the rest of the season, just because I think that they're just going to win a ton of contests. And if the opinion on Fnatic is lower than it is on G2, and in a DraftKings sense, I'm not sure that it really is. Like, I think most people are pretty caught up to the fact that both of these teams win and win by a lot, but still, that's not a good enough reason to go against Fnatic and it as a huge favorite for me tomorrow. So I'm gonna play Fnatic tomorrow. I think like the only way I'm gonna be getting different here is I am gonna explore playing team, like a team one-off maybe with some Fnatic Mad Lion stuff with some, and then I will also have some exposure to the Fnatic SK construction and the G2 SK construction. But otherwise, tomorrow in the LEC is a pretty big chalk fest for me, and I think that's, if the slate calls for it, it's fine. Like, then personally, that means I just scale back my exposure to the slate entirely and just play, the combos that I think look best instead of trying to get as many combos as I can out there.
All right, Michael, we'll move on to you. I know you like to build multiple entries here, and the Shock Blast has 58 for this particular slate. Well, would any of your theoretical 58 have Vitality in it?
I don't think so. I wouldn't. Okay, so if it was a theoretical 58, then yes. And the reason is because Fnatic could have a very high number of deaths in a loss because they will not respect Vitality and they will continuously fight them. It's hilarious how they talked about Vitality in like week 1 or week 2 on like the second or third day. And they were like, oh yeah, Vitality, watch out for them. They're actually really strong in every single role. They've been doing really well in scrims. I think it was Deficio talking about it. Yeah. And they've been horrible. And it's hilarious because going into the season, we're like, so what's up with Skeens? Like, I wonder if that guy is going to be any good at all. Like, Comp and Labrov are pretty good. Malitza's pretty good. Shigendo's an upgrade from what they had last year. Like, you'd have to think that they're going to be better, right? Wrong. Skeens is not a difference maker. And that is kind of sad. I get why they may, like, if the 11.4 changes really shift the jungle towards like less farm heavy champions, that might actually be really good for Skeens because I think they're like a good like Elise player or something like that. But yeah. It's just, this is not the meta for this type of jungler. And I think that teams eventually, as time goes on, will understand like the difference in champion pools and like player tendencies so that they have multiple players on their rosters that can do different things. Or even if it's not the same roster, but like in their system. Because at least that way they can maneuver a little bit more quickly. It's going to be interesting to see how Crown Shot's inclusion in the team changes things as well. I think that they will be more aggressive consistently. I think that Comp will eventually come back into the lineup later on in the season or next season. I do expect Comp to be a starter in the LEC. I think it was pretty unfair for them to bring in Crown Shot. I don't think it was really necessary. Comp's not the issue. Like I said, maybe you get one or two. If you want to get Vitality lineups, you can stack them really easily with everybody. So it's a good enough reason for me. I think the way that I'm leaning just in general for the slate, and these are my closing thoughts for the slate, I think I definitely like SK more than Schalke. I want exposure to Mad Lions and XL. Those XL exposure lineups, like at XL as primary stacks, I think those are very interesting. I want G2. I don't want Astralis. If I was playing 58, then yeah, I'd get one or two Astralis with like the heavy favorites to like combat the chalk. And then Misfits against Rogue, I'd want both sides. I do want both sides. Maybe even if I was playing 58, I'd get them both up into the 20% range because I do want to have leverage against the field with Misfits every single game, every single slate for the rest of the season. And then Vitality against Fnatic, mostly Fnatic, and then maybe a little bit of Vitality, like one or two.
All right. Well, we'll close this one out with Alan's final thoughts on the slate, and then we'll move right into the LCS.
So I think the way I basically have already built all my lineups for this slate, and the way I built it was basically like get SK with G2 and Fnatic to get players that you can't get into your lineups without an underdog. So that's like upset Reckless. So far, basically having Reckless in your lineup has been the key to most LEC slates, and that is one way to get Reckless in your lineup. And then I built the top support captains with Mad Lions and those two big faves, and looked at a couple of combinations where it's a 4-2-1 sort of situation with Mad Lions and G2 or Fnatic. And the team slot in those scenarios, I believe, ended up being Misfits just because it was cheap enough to fit.
Okay. Well, good thoughts on the slate, guys. I wish everyone luck on the LEC. We're going to hop into the LCS now. I want to talk a little bit about the first couple weeks. Do you guys have any thoughts going into this slate?
Michael, you muted.
Oh yeah, yeah. I had to listen to a message. It was kind of weird. I was saying no. I don't have any thoughts. Cut the feed. Stop the show. Stop the count. Basically, the first couple of weeks. I mean, what's there really to say? I think that the LCS has actually been pretty straightforward. I don't have any. It's gone how I expected it to go. I don't think that I really have anything else to say about that.
All right, Alan. Any quick thoughts going into week 3 here?
No, I mean, I think it's all the popular ones. Like Dignitas is probably not going to maintain their current position. Evil Geniuses and TSM should probably get better as the season goes on. Team Liquid is just like using stage games to experiment with playing against the other teams, like best compositions. So I don't really think their 3-3 record is very indicative of where they're at. 5-1 for 100 Thieves feels pretty nice to them. I don't think that they're a championship sort of LCS team, so I think I will be going against 100 Thieves later in the season. I don't know if this week is the time, but yeah, those are my general thoughts, I would say. The bad teams are bad.
Yeah. I guess the thing that I should make more clear, because it sounds like, oh yeah, I predicted 100 Thieves to be in first place and Evil Geniuses and Team Liquid to be 3-3. That's not what I'm saying. This is the perfect kind of setup for me in the second half, because I have like actual opinions about which teams are good and which teams are bad, and like information about play styles that I would like to use moving forward. So, like Alan said, 5-1 for 100 Thieves. I'm going to be very anti 100 Thieves probably for the rest of the season. Dignitas, I'm very happy that they're 4-2. I like Dardoch. I want Dardoch to succeed and be like a good professional player, because he's like an interesting voice in the scene, and like he's been much less verbal recently, but I think like at his peak, when he's like feeling himself, he's like really fun to watch and listen to, and he can be pretty impactful. TSM, everybody was ready to be like, TSM's done forever, including myself, right? We were talking about Bjergsen having horrible drafts, but they've started to figure it out. The scheduling has been a little bit easier too, so I think that plays a lot into it. But we're a little bit earlier in the season than we are in the LEC, so we still do have some time for it to evolve and like mature as the season goes on. But I like what's happening in the LCS from like a narrative perspective, because they're easy ones to identify and you can kind of go against.
Agreed.
Okay. And with that, we'll hop. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, my cat apparently agreed as well. He was nodding in the corner there.
Who is your cat's favorite LCS team?
He seems like a Dignitas cat right now, because he just knocked shit off of my desk and I'm pissed off at him.
Have you seen the new skins that are coming out? Did you see the Zyra skin that came out?
No.
Crystal Rose Zyra?
I like Zyra, so I might have to check it.
Sick.
Crystal Rose Zyra. Nice. They have a new Yumi skin. It's called UB. It's a bee. Very cute.
I did see that. Adorable.
There's also a bee Kog'Maw. Very cool. Kog'Maw will come back into the meta at some point because of that skin. I can guarantee you with 100% certainty that you will see a Ogmaw match during the spring season.
Right, it's like Ardent Sensor, Moonstone, build them up. Let's get the Juggermaw going again.
Exactly.
All right. Well, we'll hop right into this DraftKings slate. At the time of recording, it's not currently up, so I'm just going off of the matchups for Friday. Our first matchup is going to be Counter Logic Gaming 1-5, truly Counter Logic with 1 win, versus Cloud9 5-1. Broxa will not be starting this game. He's actually going to be starting on Saturday, so it's going to be Griffin's last game up against Cloud9. So
Bye-bye.
Alan, we'll start with you on this one. Will Griffin have his glory going out, taking a win against Cloud9, or will he go down in flames? Your thoughts?
I would go with the flame side.
Yes.
Yeah, this is a really bad matchup to be your last one in the LCS to show that you belong in the LCS. You're probably up against the best jungler. I would say probably long term the best or second best overall team in the LCS. So not a good sending off for Mr. Griffin, but I do like this game in a DraftKings sense. CLG has basically thrown caution to the wind at this point and is willing to scrap quite a bit and try to make things happen in their games, just because I think that they are basically know that they're at a talent deficit in almost all of their games. So I think that this sets up for another sort of Cloud9 smash in the first game sort of slate, and people are going to be either unhappy or happy with that outcome. And I'm personally going to try and be a happy person with that outcome and play as much Cloud9 as I can tomorrow. So I think that if, I expect the field to probably have around 30 to 40% Cloud9, I might have 60% Cloud9 tomorrow.
So taking a strong stance on Cloud9. All right. Well, we'll jump with you onto this one, Michael. Counter Logic Gaming versus Cloud9. Will you have as much exposure as Alan to Cloud9?
Probably not. I think it's a valid way to play it. I have no problems with playing that much C9 in general, but I'm more of a contrarian kind of player. Like the fact that I'm not max entering this stuff, I kind of that's one of the ways I try to be different is by trying to fade the favorite team, like everyone's favorite team. Just to give myself some more chances to be unique, like have a unique lineup. C9 against Counter Logic Gaming, I think it's a great spot for C9, which is the trouble, because CLG is one of the teams that we want to play against because of how they approach the game, just in general. So it's tough, but it's the truth, I totally get it. So I know that CLG had a good match. Their last match last week against Golden Guardians. I don't think anyone's going to be tricked into thinking that that's like indicative of how they're going to play for the rest of the season. Finn actually played really well against Niles. I was calling for Niles to be able to win that matchup, and he tweeted something like "prepare to get top diffed," and then just completely fell on his face, which I thought was hilarious. And then that's about it. So I mean, CLG, they're the kind of team you love to pick against because first of all, they're a horrible organization. Second of all, they have horrible players. Third of all, they have horrible analysts and people like that. Some people may know what I'm talking about. Other people probably don't. Their owner is James Dolan, who sucks. The Knicks are actually okay right now, but James Dolan, he can take no credit for it. He finally took his hands off the wheel, and they're actually going in the right direction, hopefully. So yeah, you can use the same mentality. Like, okay, G2 is going to be 7-2 or better the rest of the season. CLG is probably going to be 2-7 or worse. So if you don't play them, then maybe it kills you on the 2 slates that they win. But even in those 2 slates that they win, they're probably going to be the top stack less than 20% of the time. Or actually, maybe more. They would actually probably be more. Because of team tendencies, right?
Yeah, maybe. Weren't they? Yeah. They won the slate that you're talking about with Golden Guardians, right? Is that
Griffin was 0-7. I don't think that they did win this slate. I don't think they did.
Yeah, you might be right.
17 kills.
I didn't play on Sunday, so
Yeah, Dig had 21. I think Dig is the one that won people stuff.
Gotcha. Yeah,
I'm not sure though.
That would make sense. Yeah.
It was Cloud9 Dig. I had a little bit of exposure to CLG with Cloud9 and it didn't hit the top.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, with that, we'll roll right into our second game of the slate. We have the Dignitas that seems to be the hottest topic of the LCS right now. Are they pretenders or are they for real? Versus FlyQuest, who are 2-4. Michael, we can start with you on this one. Your thoughts on Dignitas versus FlyQuest?
Sure. So before the season started, I was kind of saying, I think if Fake God can put together a solid season, then they're going to be a league average team. And so far, they've been league average, and like with slight variance, they're 4-2. So I like it. I think that I like the way that they approach the game. For years, I've wanted a team to kind of build a team around Dardoch. Dardoch needs to be the focal point, and then you need to have players who are willing to sacrifice for their jungler, just like a JDG does it. You know, that's what you need, or like a Nongshim Red Force. You have players like Peanut, players like Kanavi. I don't think that Dardoch is that level, but that's the style of player that Dardoch is, and they really need that attention. And when Dardoch's going around making these calls, he needs to feel empowered by the rest of his team, and I think that they've actually successfully done that. For the most part, they are the underdogs against FlyQuest, which I think is probably correct, but it's like -120 to -110. So that makes me want to root for Dignitas to win more. I think the problem is that for DraftKings, FlyQuest really is like a very good DraftKings style of team, in my opinion. I think like Baby C9, the fact that they have a bunch of XC9 players, they're like hardcore team fighting. They're going to be a hardcore team fighting team when they win matches against a team like Dignitas. I think that that's pretty good. So it would really come down to how you view Dignitas in a loss. If you want to get exposure to FlyQuest, I have no issue getting exposure to Dignitas against FlyQuest. You know, so it really comes down to how you view that digging a loss kind of situation.
Yeah, I can bring that up. While you bring that up,
I'll go lane by lane.
Go for
just to finish it up. So Fake God against Licorice. Licorice is the better player. Nobody's doubting that. Dardoch against Jose Diodo. Dardoch is better than Jose Diodo right now. Maybe Jose Diodo is better long term. I don't know. That's what people want you to believe. Soligo against Palafox. Roughly even. I don't have a huge lean either way. Neo and Afromu against Johnson and Diamond. I probably prefer Johnson and Diamond long term. But that's really it. I mean, players like Neo and Johnson are very close. I think the reason why I like I just like Diamond more than Afromu for DraftKings type stuff specifically, because Afromu will just like have a 10 death game. So that's never fun.
Yeah, I mentioned on the Gold Card podcast last night that they really seem to be hammering the Dardoch play, whoever you want to carry with. And I think we're going to see more of that once the farming jungle meta goes away.
Say that again?
We talked about how he's had like 10 different champions and just kind of let him play what he wants to carry. And I think that's only going to go further once the new patch comes out. They won't be playing on that this week, but it's going to rely on junglers to gank a lot more, which I think is something Dardoch can take advantage of. So that's something to look at.
Oh, yeah, 100%. When Dardoch was at his best, when it was like Lee Sin, Olaf, Rek'Sai, Elise, like way back. That was his meta. That's when he was the best.
Yeah.
Specifically.
Just something for the viewers to check out maybe next week when they are on 11-4. But we'll go to you, Alan, on this one. Dignitas versus FlyQuest. Who do you like?
I wanted to just briefly get to the Dignitas in a loss. So far, they are the worst death per loss team in the regular season. Obviously, they only have 2 losses so far, but in their 2 losses, they only died 24 times, which puts them at a nice 12 deaths per loss. I don't think that really matters because of what Michael was talking about with the way that FlyQuest wins games is a lot of team fighting and kind of stuff. I think that this game, it's hard to talk about without knowing the salaries for me, honestly, because if Dignitas is the higher salaried team, then I want FlyQuest. If FlyQuest is the higher salaried team, I probably want Dignitas. So that I do view this game as a straight up coin flip. Like, I think that where these two teams are at right now, I really don't know who's going to win this game. It's probably whoever gets the better of the Jose Deodo Dardoch matchup to me. And so I would really just play it by the salaries. It does project better for FlyQuest in a win, I would say. So that makes me lean a little bit towards the FlyQuest side, and I do expect that they're either going to be like roughly even in salary, or FlyQuest will be slightly cheaper, would be my guess. Although the sportsbook odds you said does have FlyQuest as the favorite here, so it's a tough kind of coin flip match, but I think that it is the kind of match that you could want a lot of exposure to, because it could end up as a high kill score kind of game, and then it's two teams that a lot of people are not as familiar with or as excited about playing. So I think having exposure to both sides here makes sense, especially if it's possible to play them with Cloud9.
All right.
The one thing I was going to say about that is I think you can justify playing FlyQuest on every single slate because of their team style. I think with Dignitas, it takes a lot more convincing. So for that reason, I typically think of Dignitas as like a lower owned team where like maybe 15% of the time they're the top stack in wins. Whereas FlyQuest is like, you will always want exposure to them because if they win, they're probably a little bit better than 20%.
Yeah.
To be the top stack. So that's probably that.
That makes sense.
All right, well, we'll move on to our third game of the slate. We have the Golden Guardians sitting at 1-5 versus Team Liquid 3-3 on the year. I know there's a lot of talk in the Discord, and especially from John, that Golden Guardians are the worst team in the LCS and possibly all around because of that one Baron play where everyone went bottom and then Baron just got taken. But we'll go with you, Alan, on this one first. Golden Guardians versus Team Liquid. Who are you taking here? And I'm assuming it's Team Liquid, but would you force stack them in a spot like this?
Here's what I'm taking here. A walk. I'm gonna when this game comes on, I'm gonna just head outside, have maybe a jog. Who knows? Maybe I'll get back into exercising. Maybe I'll lift some weights. Who knows? The possibilities are endless. For DraftKings purposes, skip. Don't get involved with a game that involves the two lowest combined kills per minute and deaths per loss and kills per win teams in the league playing against each other. Team Liquid's going to win this game like 10-4.
All right, we'll go to you, Michael, on this one. Golden Guardians versus Team Liquid.
I don't want to talk about this game.
Okay.
This doesn't seem like a good use of our time.
This is a hard pass. Of course, now they're gonna win the slate. Our Team Liquid's gonna have like 25 kills because they're pissed off about losing 3 games or whatever.
The only thing I will say, go ahead, if you want to actually talk about it.
You can go first. I know it's not really that important what I was going to say, so you can go first.
Sure. I was just going to say, if you want to get different in like single entries and stuff like that, if the Team Liquid team isn't the most expensive and Cloud9 is the most expensive tomorrow, you can go with a Team Liquid team here because CLG is usually at the bottom of the barrel, and which would make Cloud9 the most expensive on the slate. So maybe if you want to get a little different with 4-2-1, Team Liquid in the team slot looks pretty good to me. But
love it.
Michael, you can go with your thoughts on it.
Honestly, I think it's a bad spot for a Team Liquid team slot because of the weird, disgusting kind of games that we might actually get out of this one. Like you can feel pretty confident most of the time you're going to get 24-ish from a team slot in a win, or 20 to 24 in a win, where like winners of a close game will theoretically get up to 28-ish in like good wins. Against Golden Guardians, like, oh, well, Niles actually died 3 or 4 times in lane because Team Liquid decided to camp him. He lost his tower actually, very shockingly early, and then they took a Baron and they just ended the game through top lane somehow. So, like, if they can do that before the 30-minute mark, maybe you get the under 30 bonus and you're looking good. But it scares me, I think, because you're going to be paying a little bit extra for them too, probably in this spot because they're gigantic favorites. The longer term view of this game would be if you're someone playing a ton of lineups every single week or every single slate, and you think to yourself, like, I want to have 20 to 30% exposure of Team Liquid every single slate because for the rest of the season they'll be the top stack of the slate 30-ish% of the time because they're just going to win so much. Like, if you're going to take that angle, then go ahead. But you're gonna sit there watching this game, and so many of the outcomes are just gonna feel like, oh my god, this is disgusting. The good thing is that Golden Guardians is just like mental and will just actually fight you anyways, in like an Invictus gaming style. So, do your stats speak to that, Alan? Is Golden Guardians bloody as losers in general?
No, not so far. They were a little bit.
What's their average game time? Is their average game time like super low, right?
Yeah, I would guess so. Let's look here. I can pull that up.
Yeah, like 27 or 28 minutes, I would think.
Average game time for Golden Guardians is 33.9 so far in
They are they're above league average.
They are above league average, yeah. So yeah, they're
20 deaths per loss. Or is it less?
No, I have them in the regular season at 17.
18
deaths
17.
per loss, yeah. So
okay.
below league average.
So what do you think about this? I know you were saying the whole jogging thing, but like from a stats perspective, is this a spot that you're supposed to be fading Team Liquid?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, in a Team Liquid win, I have it rated as a 782 in the bloodiness rating, which 1,000 is average. So it's pretty hard for Team Liquid to get there, and they're obviously going to be the first or second most expensive team on the slate would be my expectation. So then you can't even really get interesting stacks with them. So I think it's just it's a go for a walk kind of game.
Yeah, Team Liquid with Immortals. That's what you want. I'm serious. If I'm playing a Team Liquid lineup tomorrow, I'm getting Immortals in there. You go the Contrarian 100 Thieves take.
Yeah,
that's it. Right there. You're welcome. Whoever's actually listening to me right now and is going to put that lineup in there, congrats. You did it. You did it, bud.
Way to go.
Congratulations. We'll move on to our fourth game of the slate here. We have Team Solo Mid sitting at 4-2 versus Evil Geniuses 3-3. We talked a bit about it on the Gold Card podcast last night, and we were all four of us were kind of just stuck in the middle on this one, and couldn't really make a way for it either way. So hopefully we can get a little bit of clarity here tonight for the people that watch both shows. But Michael, TSM versus Evil Geniuses, who do you got? What are you doing with this game?
It's a close game. I mean, it'll be very fun to watch from a real life perspective. I think that there are a ton of different takes you could have for this game, and no one's going to tell you that you're wrong. Impact against Huni. Personally, I prefer Huni. I know that Impact is more consistent. Some people like that kind of thing. Spica against Fensker, and I think Spica is better. Jizuke against Power of Evil. I think Power of Evil is better. Definitely an Ignar against Lost and Sword Art. I think that Deftly and Ignar are actually better right now. I think that Sword Art is probably a little better than Ignar long term, but not by much. I really do think that if Ignar was like on a good team in China or Korea, I think that they'd be still a very good support. What do you guys think that the public consensus is going to be? Is that TSM is much better than Evil Geniuses right now? If that's the case, I would want to just play a lot more Evil Geniuses than TSM. But I think this is the kind of game where you can just match the field and be okay with it. I don't see myself going much further outside of that.
Yeah, my quick thoughts on it are that TSM are on a 4-game win streak. That's what people are going to remember. And Evil Geniuses have dropped 2 of their last games. So I assume more people will be on TSM, but who knows?
Yeah.
Alan, we'll get your thoughts on this game.
God, I hope that more people are on TSM. I hope you guys are right. Now, I do think that I can't solve who's gonna win this game for you. It's if I had a coin, I'd flip it, and tell you that way, because I think that these are just the third and fourth best teams in the LCS. That's gonna be a hot take. That means that 100 Thieves is the fifth, but I actually kind of believe that. So I think that it's just a spot where you get exposure to both sides. I will try to have more exposure to Evil Geniuses, I think, because of that notion that TSM is on a win streak. But I think that you can safely play both sides of this matchup, because I think that this kind of game, these close games, just always tend to have the high kill totals, because it's a back and forth kind of game, and someone wins on 1 or 2 team fights at the end, and ends up scoring really, really well. And the game rates already pretty well for me from a bloodiness standpoint, just because Evil Geniuses has just been a crazy bloody team so far from a kills per win and deaths per loss standpoint. They are weirdly not a huge combined kills per minute team, but their games have just been so long because they're in all of them, I think is what I would say. So so I think either team could be the winning 4 stack tomorrow, and so I wanna play it that way for sure. I will have if it's playable, where you can have a 4 stack of Cloud9 with one of these teams, and then vice versa, I will definitely do some of that, and then probably look at them with a FlyQuest or Dignitas.
I do want to speak to your bloodiness rating here really quick. How does this rate out for a DraftKings style? Is this going to be a game where it's pretty bloody, or will it be more macro based?
Yeah.
Could I guess? I think. Let me guess. So I think that if TSM wins, it's supposed to be less bloody than usual, and if Evil Geniuses wins, it's supposed to be more bloody than usual. That would be based off of play styles. I don't. Maybe I know that we've said in the past, there are a lot of teams that aren't really playing to their play styles yet. But I think as time goes on, we'll get it closer to that. Was I accurate or no?
Yes, yes, you are 100% accurate. Yep, Evil Geniuses in a win rates as the highest team on the slate, and then TSM in a win doesn't rate super well. But I don't think that matters too much for this game, just because I don't think that TSM I don't think there's a scenario where TSM gets an early game lead and sort of macros out Evil Geniuses in my mind. But maybe you guys disagree.
Yeah, I'm sure all of that is also built into the esports department projections to kind of show you where you would want to lean in this. Not lean as whereas who's going to win, but who's going to output a better score in a win.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. A lot of the bloodiness rating stuff that I'm talking about is already cooked into the projections, and then the projections have the kill participation, so that it's actually tied to certain players. So if you're trying to decide who you want to have as a captain or something, and you're not playing a ton of lineups, it's very, very helpful in that scenario.
All right. Any closing thoughts on this one? Team Solo Mid versus EG, or we can move on?
I think we're good.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. We'll move on to our 5th and final game of the slate. We have the Immortals 2-4 versus 100 Thieves 5-1. Michael already alluded to this one a little bit. Team Liquid Immortals to be the anti-100 Thieves here. But we'll start with you, Alan, on this one. Immortals versus 100 Thieves. Who do you like? Would you 4-stack any of these guys? What are we doing with this game?
Yes. I think that so in the game, 100 Thieves is obviously a humongous favorite. They have the better players in almost every role, and it can be hard to make an argument for Immortals. However, I do think that they are the side if you were going to play this game on DraftKings, because 100 Thieves almost definitely is going to garner more ownership than I think that they deserve for their chances to like win you a slate tomorrow. Now, obviously, it depends on salary structure too, because if 100 Thieves is just like weirdly cheap tomorrow, then I don't recommend fading 100 Thieves. But if they are the second highest salary tomorrow behind Cloud9, then I think that fading them is probably the way to go. I have them in a win rated as one of the less bloody teams on the slate, and I think that makes sense if you really think about their play style. They can get into some split push kind of stuff sometimes, and if they just get a big lead on Immortals, they can also just close that out pretty easily. So I don't think that them winning is a great scenario. And then Immortals, I have no idea what this team is at all. They have won against Team Liquid and Evil Geniuses so far, and then they lost to Dignitas. Who else have they lost to? TSM. I'm trying to remember. They lost to Golden Guardians. Oh yeah, they did lose to Golden Guardians. So yeah, I don't know. The team's completely two-faced. I don't really have a take on them yet, but I do feel like 100 Thieves is overrated generally. So I just want exposure to their opponents sometimes, because I think that they're just gonna be over-owned for a little while. And so if they do end up in an upset loss, I think that their opponents could be slate breakers, because you're going to be able to get them however you want with 80 carry captains and whatever. And 100 Thieves does not strike me as a team that's just going to back into their base if they're down against an underdog. And so then the underdog scores really well in that scenario too.
All right, Michael, we'll get your thoughts on this one.
So, whenever I'm talking about an Immortals match, I feel obligated to say that I hate Australians and kangaroos and OPL bot laners. I hate the narratives that were surrounding them coming into the season. I thought that they were overhyped for no reason at all. But with that being said, I think we're getting far enough into the season where everyone's going to start overreacting and saying they're like the worst team in the league and just comparing them to the other bottom tier teams. They are much better than the other bottom tier teams. I think that talent-wise, they are just better than those other teams. So with that being said, against 100 Thieves, I do want to play them purely for the anti-100 Thieves angle. I think that's good enough to justify getting them into lineups. Lane by lane, it is really tough. Xerxes and Closer. Xerxes is good enough to compete with Closer, I think, in any meta. I think that Xerxes is probably more meta resilient too. So when the 11.4 patch comes out, I think Xerxes is another player who's going to have gigantic benefits. I think that's a good thing to watch out for. So the players who are playing things like Lilia, Talia, I think those players probably have champions they can default to that are going to be better suited to the upcoming meta. Insanity is good enough, I think. Against Demonte, I think Insanity can win that. I feel like I won a slate last year, Immortals against Golden Guardians, with Insanity against Demonte. For some reason, that's kind of sticking out in my mind. And then Raze and Destiny against FBI and Huhi. It's another OPL bot lane. Well, half OPL bot lane. So if you truly believe in the OPL power, then Reyes has to be just as good as FBI, right? The only concern I have. No?
No, he does not. I will say that let's not. FBI
this is mostly a joke on my end. I was heavy on Immortals when Reyes played Aphelios. He went 2-6. It looked like the worst Aphelios I've ever seen. Next to 6A last year. That's all I'm gonna say. There's your pre-tilt going into the weekend.
Reyes was dog shit in that game. That was one of the worst professional games I've ever seen. But yeah, I will say, let's not gloss over. FBI and Hui are much better than Reyes and Destiny have been so far.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the last thing I guess would be, if we think that 100 Thieves is going to win a large percentage of the time against Immortals, and we think that a lot of players are high on Immortals right now, is Immortals a bad team to play against for DraftKings?
Let's see. So Immortals are below league average in deaths per loss, kills per win, and combined kills per minute. So yes, I would say that makes them a bad DraftKings against team.
There you go.
So yes,
all you needed to hear.
So I think I've been thinking about this a little bit. This is just a general thing. I know we're a little over an hour now, but it's salary doesn't really matter in League of Legends DFS in the way that obviously that it matters in traditional sports, because you in a points per dollar sort of way. But when good teams are in bad DraftKings matchups, it does matter there a little bit, where you're like, okay, 100 Thieves is the second highest salaried team, but I don't think that like they can really get there, because they really high salaried teams have to like really outscore their opponents like G2 and Cloud9 do for them to be worth it, because a lot of times you're playing like the support captain constructions, the top captain constructions. And so in that sense, points per dollar does matter like a tiny bit at the top. Obviously, like if you can make good lineups, make good lineups. But when you're trying to decide between like what teams to play there, you do have to consider that at least a little bit.
I'd be careful with that, because I know what you mean, and like the better way to think about it, in my opinion, and you can tell me if you think I'm wrong.
Yeah.
If you are the number one, if you are the most expensive team on a DraftKings slate for League of Legends, right? You're only going to fit with between 4 to 6 teams. And that's if you're not like super high, which like sometimes they'll bump it even a little bit more. So if you are the first or second most expensive team on the slate, you're going to be restricted with the number of teams that you can play with to begin with. That's going to make them hit less often. And it also forces you to get them into lineup constructions with like bigger underdogs. So those lineups are going to feel worse a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's almost a good reason to play 100 Thieves in those specific types of instances, instead of pivoting into like a jungle lineup or a top lineup or a support jungle top or support lineup. So that's like what I was saying before about Team Liquid. If I have Team Liquid lineups, I'd probably want Team Liquid with Immortals, because those are the ones that can compete against the other AD carry captain lineups more easily. You know, like if we get 2 gigantic favorites winning with a ridiculous number of kills, yes, the support lineups, the top lineups, jungle lineups will have chances to be in first place as well. But I think like a much higher percentage of the time, you still want to default into the AD carry and mids, like if you're playing similar types of lineups consistently.
Yeah. I think you're right, and what you said unlocked something for me. It's like the value of a team relative to their right. The value of a team relative to their salary only becomes relevant with the constructions that you can build with.
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh, this person is salaried too low because I project this amount of points compared to their dollars. It's like, oh, I can play this guy at captain and I project him this high because I can get him with this other team that I think can win. So that conversation will definitely take more sussing out, but I thought it was a thing idea.
Yeah, the thing is with League of Legends player pools and like stacking, a lot of the time the only question you need to ask yourself is it's a yes or no question. It's a binary choice. It's like you either are playing this player or you aren't playing this player. And then once you have a few of those teams lined up, you just mix and match as much as you can. If you're building to get combinations, that's like the simple question that I ask myself, and I'm just trying to get combinations. Other people are more about like ownership percentages and like building a portfolio. I don't really go that way. I'm more of like I want as many combinations of these teams as I can possibly get. I don't know what percentage I'm going to have of a team, but generally if I like an underdog, I'm going to have a higher percentage of them. Like I'm going to be like 4xing, 5xing, 6xing the field because of the number of combinations I can get. Like if I like Misfits and I can play Misfits with every single team, then I'm going to out of necessity, I'm going to have more combinations of that, driving up the ownership in my portfolio specifically. So when it hits, I'm going to be good because I tried to cover a lot of the bases. So that's I guess the difference of how I normally try to build like 10 to 20 lineups as opposed to a lot of other people who are max entering like Awesemo and people like that. I'd love to take a look at their ownership stuff, but I just don't have enough time to really dig into that. Like I'm not, if I was going to dedicate to playing max entries every single slate for an entire season, I'd be doing a lot more work like that. And I think I kind of do want to do that either next season or next year, depending on when my commission checks hit. But at the same time, once you get a certain amount of commission, it's like, well, do I really need to play that much money on DraftKings to have fun with DraftKings? So it's a double-edged sword, but yeah, it'll be interesting to take a look at later on for sure.
Cool.
All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for watching today. If you enjoyed the video, since this one is free, be sure to like and subscribe to the Esports Department YouTube channel. I also want to thank Michael and Alan for joining me tonight. You can find Michael at League of Items and Alan at LCS Picks on Twitter. You can find me at XGhostWriter90. If you have thoughts for the show, something you might want to see, maybe a segment in the future, hit me up or one of us up. Also, the Esports Department Discord is free. You can go to the esportsdepartment.com today and get 10% off a subscription. If you feel like getting some of those projections that I talked about earlier, just use that code IEDGE, IEDGE, to help support the show. Thanks again for watching. Good luck on the slate, and let's go make some money.
Thank you, Ghost. I don't think we thank you enough.
Yeah, thanks so much for hosting.
Thank you for yelling at us in Discord that we're taking too much time.
My pleasure. I'll be back doing it again tomorrow.